Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Old Firm Build-Up preview show. Of course, it's Old Firm Day here. It's the first Old Firm match of the season taking place at Parkhead. So I'm joined by Joshua Barry and Johnny McFarlane to look ahead to that encounter. And of course, the team news will drop roughly in about 15 minutes' time as well. So we'll give a reaction to the team that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst selects this afternoon. Joshua, first of all, do you have the battle fever on, as they say?
Looking forward to it, Derek. I think, yes, the atmosphere, I'd say the not excitement, confidence levels probably aren't as high as they could be from a Rangers point of view, given the kind of the injury situation. No signings on deadline day. I think if they were to go there and get a positive result today, obviously there's a chance for Celtic to go 5 points clear, but there's also the chance for Rangers to go top. If you look at what they did away in Eindhoven, I think there's reason to be confident. Equally, you look at Celtic's start to the season, the amount of goals they've scored and the way they attack is going to be difficult. So I'm sure it'll be they're pretty relentless 90 minutes. Looking forward to watching it.
What about you, Johnny? How are you feeling heading into this one? I've got to admit, I'm pretty relaxed going in. I don't think I'm sure once it hits 12:30, then it'll be fever pitch time. But at the moment, I'm quite relaxed with Rangers approaching this game.
Yeah, I feel a little out of the loop having been on holiday until this morning. So I've been quite detached from it all.
Right enough. How was your holiday?
It was great. I've missed all the transfer window controversy. The fact that there was no players coming in obviously was, I think, a little disappointing. But perhaps, the news that came out yesterday about financial fair play perhaps gives us an indication of why there hasn't been a lot of cash spent. But I'm assuming there'll be more detail on that next week. Certainly, the Rangers Review will want to dig in a little deeper to find out what's going on in that. So that's definitely something that's on the agenda. In terms of this game, I think Gio's earned trust. I've said this before ahead of big games. He always seems to do better once he's got a tactical handle on a team, having seen them first up. And we've seen that numerous times now, whether it be PSV, Red Bull, Braga. He does seem to do that. So Celtic, they played very well in the first encounter. Gio got to grips with them a bit more after the halftime break in the 3-0 defeat at Parkhead the last time they played. And I would expect, given the kind of the battles that have taken place between Rangers and Celtic since then, this is going to be another very, very tight game, a tactical affair, but with a fair amount of chances given the way Celtic play. I was talking to Joshua yesterday, and I mentioned that I'd watched Match of the Day, and they were talking about Pep Guardiola and the fact that he's now reverted back to the inverted fullbacks, and this being a major tactical question for Premier League clubs. Now, I can't remember which pundit it was who was talking about it, but they were basically saying that the only way to combat it is by being positive, by trying to flood the wide areas with players with pace, and going man for man and really, really attacking. And if you do that, you can break that system down. Interestingly, there's not a lot of Scottish teams equipped to actually do that, which I think is why Postecoglou's system has been so successful. And I think Rangers, though, are a team that can pull that off. So I'm looking forward to seeing them be aggressive, hard in the challenge. Rangers are a bigger side physically than Celtic, and I'm looking for them to really impose themselves on this game. And you're hoping that within the boundaries of the law that the Rangers players are going in to be aggressive, because that's part of the way you're going to unsettle and upset the Celtic side, I think.
Yeah. This touch on this comment has come in, Joshua, because we were just talking about this off air from Craig McCormick. Hearing there's no John Lundstram, can you put minds at ease, Joshua?
Well, someone's just tweeted me with a photo of John Lundstram on the Celtic Park pitch. So presuming that's from today, I think that's just one of the many internet rumours. I mean, Van Bronckhorst was even asked about it yesterday with some rumours about Tav not training. Yeah. I think it's just Twitter, isn't it? But no, I think he's going to be important today. One of the most important players in that team for Rangers. And he's played well in Old Firm so far, so hopefully keeps that up.
Yeah. Johnny, Giovanni van Bronckhorst confirmed yesterday that there is no Tom Lawrence, and in fact, he's going to be out until the international break at least. So he will miss matches against Aberdeen and, crucially, Napoli and Ajax as well in the Champions League. This game would be right up his street. I'd imagine he's going to be a big loss for Rangers, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really, really impressed with Tom Lawrence from literally the moment I clapped eyes on him, Derek. Now, you've been consistent from the very first moment he was linked. You said, this guy is a baller, he's a player. You didn't use the word baller, actually. You'd have been banned from the YouTube cast for that. So I don't know where that came from. Sorry, folks, I'm not trying to be 20. But you said he was a top-class player, and so it's proven. He's been absolutely excellent. And I remember him coming on at Ibrox at halftime in the game against West Ham, and he almost immediately made an impact. I think it was his first touch. He put the ball in the back of the net. It was first or second touch, and went on to, I think, have another 2 assists in that game. I think 13 minutes or 14 minutes had gone by, and he'd racked up a goal and 2 assists. And I thought to myself, here's a guy that's got numbers written all over his play. Intelligent movement, late into the box. He's just that kind of player that I think against domestic opposition particularly is going to have a really, really, really good season. So I'm disappointed that he's not available, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. People talking about the rumours about Lundstrom, well, I think that would be a really big loss. James Tavernier would be a huge loss. Cholak would be a huge loss. But I wouldn't necessarily categorise Lawrence in this game as that. I think Rangers are going to look for a little bit more solidity than they might have done against PSV, which they had to go and win that game.
Yeah.
So I think the squad is there to cope, and he's not one of the 2 or 3, maybe 4 players that you would look at and you go, that's huge.
Yeah. Curry Muncher gets in touch, John. He says, you've been hanging about with the young team too much. Bother. LOL. So, yeah, that's Joshua's gang. That's his lingo. Joshua, there's a lot of comments coming in at the moment in terms of, well, there's one here on Malik Tillman. Billy McCulloch writes in, hi, Billy. Hoping Tillman stands up today. Need every man on their game. Can't afford Passengers' central role, hopefully. Do you see him playing a central role in behind Cholak, perhaps?
I think he's stood up kind of every time he's played. He's maybe had the quiet half here or there, but given this is a player who's, I think he's still played under 10 professional football games. You know, I think his start's been really impressive. He'd only, featured, maybe had 1 start for Bayern Munich, featured a couple of times off the bench. So I think Tillman, particularly if you look at the impact he made away from home in Eindhoven to get Rangers through to the Champions League, I still think that he's played slightly deeper at points as well. Probably should have scored against Ross County when he got the ball cut back into him. But it'll be really important today. I completely agree with Billy in that regard, because Rangers need players to play close to Cholak and off the ball. They need to get their press right. Against PSV, I thought it was pretty good. They're not. It's different from last season where in the Old Firms Rangers went man for man all over the pitch. Against PSV, you're seeing them keep a 2v1 at the back with Goldson and Sands, and then Cholak obviously kind of splitting between the 2 strikers. So it's a bit of a jigsaw piece when you shuffle when Barisic steps up. But there was moments where Tavernier was having to go high and Lawrence is then having to cover the fullback in behind. Celtic will obviously bring the fullbacks inside. But Rangers need to be aggressive today, and they need to target Celtic's weak points. On you go, Johnny.
Yeah, I was going to say, can I make a case for Rabi Matondo?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
go ahead.
I've not been that impressed with Matondo so far. He looks to me like a project player. But I think it's really key to hit Celtic with pace. I think that's their anathema. That's the thing that kills them. If you've got pace in the wide areas, you will get in behind, because their fullbacks aren't there. Their fullbacks are in the middle. Rangers have got that with Ryan Kent. That's not a problem on the left. On the right, I noticed both you boys in your predicted lineups have gone for Arfield, and I can totally understand that. But Arfield has no pace. Cholak has no pace.
Here.
Sorry?
I went for Scott Wright.
Oh, sorry. Right. Okay, right. Scott Wright.
Josh was going for Arfield.
Yeah.
I thought you'd both gone for Arfield when I looked at them. Sorry. Well, Scott Wright I can understand, and I think that would be... I think that there's a possibility for him playing as well. But I think Matondo is just so quick. that I'd be considering playing him out there. But I'm not for a minute saying that that's not without its flaws. That idea. It's more about I'm trying to get across that I think Rangers need that pace now. Whether it's right, whether it's Matondo, that's what puts me off selecting Arfield, despite his form, which has been great.
Equally, Johnny, look at I think it's a good point, but you look at where Rangers have conceded the goals at Parkhead. The last 4 goals they've conceded, you had Sakala switch off on the right side ahead of Tavernier. You had Amad Diallo. Is it time to then throw Rabbi Matondo and another player ahead of Tavernier, who maybe his first instinct isn't to defend? And given Celtic are so strong that they've built a lot of their attacks on the left side this season. But then with that, it's also an opportunity, as you say. So you can look at it 2 ways. Maybe Rangers overcompensate in midfield and then do play someone like Matondo or Wright who can carry the ball into that area of the pitch, because I think that's something that we've not really seen Rangers do that when they've played well against Celtic. It's often been, I think, about their press off the ball and kind of keeping them high up the pitch. So I can see either argument. And also, Van Bronckhorst does have options in spite of a lot of injuries. Morelos off the bench. If he does start Arfield, he has Wright or Matondo. Maybe if he plays Arfield, he has that. I think it's important that Rangers try and maybe create that, Tavernier going wide, creating that 4-3 in the middle of the pitch, if they can. Lots of options. I can see both benefits. Also with Arfield, you've probably got more of a goal threat if Rangers are building their attacks down the left and coming off the right-hand side. But as I say, I agree with you that when a team has a strength, obviously you have to try and, I guess, compensate that. But maybe there's the opportunity to exploit that and do something a little bit left field as well.
Yeah, a few comments coming in from folk from the other side of the fence. They've been well and truly dismissed. So if you see any comments, folks, don't worry. I'll police it and get them removed. Johnny, I wanted to touch on this. Graham Brown says, looking for a strong referee. Nick Walsh, of course, a man in the middle today. Let's hope that the match goes without us talking about the referee at the end of it.
Derek. I'm going to pause you there. The lineup's out. Sorry, mate.
Okay. Yeah, the lineup's out. Let's touch on that before we come back to Nick Walsh. You want to tell us the lineups, Joshua?
I'll tell you firstly, no one has called it right. McLaughlin in goals, Tavernier, Goldson, Sands, Barisic. So back 4 as predicted. Kamara, Lundstrom and Davis, Tillman, Kent and Cholak. So probably Tillman tucked in off the right, Kamara at number 10. So solid, I think you'd have to say, but not what many people expected with Tillman not at number 10. I'll read that again just in case anyone missed it. McLaughlin, Tavernier, Goldson, Sands, Barisic. Presumably a midfield 2 of Lundstrom and Davis with Kamara ahead of them. Tillman tucked off the right, Kent off the left, and Cholak up top. I think what that means is Rangers will probably approach the game very similarly to Eindhoven, but with Tillman in place of Lawrence and Kamara a bit higher. That's my instinct anyway.
There's not a chance, Josh, that they go for a sort of flat midfield 3, more akin to the Gerrard midfield with Tillman sitting in front. And Kent as a second striker off Cholak.
Yeah, maybe with then Tavernier, but then who sits wide on the left? Tavernier with Barisic? I don't know. I think looking at what they've done so far this season, normally Barisic isn't, he's joining attacks kind of similar to last season rather than forming the width. But it could be. You wouldn't put it past Van Bronckhorst to do something a little bit kind of left field. I'll read you the Celtic team as well while I've got it. So they go Hart, Juranovic, Carter, Vickers, Starfelt and Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Abada, Jota, Kyogo. So I guess the kind of top line from that is that they've gone with Abada rather than Maeda. But aside from that, probably as you'd expect. So yeah, I didn't see Davis, Kamara and Lundstrom starting together, but
the one thing I've noticed, Johnny, and it sort of dispels your argument a few minutes ago, no Matondo in the squad.
Yeah, was that right?
Yeah.
So, I'll read the bench. McGregor.
I'm going to have to go for 10 minutes. I'll come back, okay?
Okay, no worries. Bye, Johnny.
Right, I'll read the bench to you there, Derek, or for the viewers. McGregor, Ridvan, King, Devine, Jack, Arfield, Wright, Fashion Junior, Morelos. So you're right, no place for Rabbi Matondo. Don't know if that's enforced or just a selection thing, but yeah, interesting team, Derek. Interesting team.
Yeah, it is. Stephen Davis giving the nod. I had there was part of me that was tempted to put him into my predicted lineups when I made them up last night. He was sort of preferred against PSV, if you can remember that Champions League match against Ibrox. He can pick passes between the lines, and he's comfortable on the ball, sitting deep, and can get Rangers progressed up the pitch. So I can see why Gio has opted to go for him. But Kamara in that more advanced role, Joshua, it'll be interesting. Rangers need a European Glenn Kamara performance today, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, I always like Glenn Kamara when he's playing deep like he did against PSV, because he can take those touches that there's few things I enjoy more in football than when Glenn Kamara spins away from a marker, which is maybe a bit boring, but maybe it will be a flat midfield three. I thought, his performance against Leipzig is a great example of how he can be effective. The thing, whenever I speak to people about Glenn Kamara at the club, the thing that they always say is so good in tight areas. That's kind of what he stands out in. You remember the Rangers' first goal against Leipzig, where the ball goes to Kamara, Kent goes up the wing and crosses for Tavernier at the back post. Is Kamara able to outplay two players that allows Kent to kind of run almost untracked for a bit before he attracts pressure? I think it's important that you start in these types of games, probably, especially when you're away from home, your best players. And I think Kamara went on his day as one of Rangers' best players. No, he's not always the most effective on his own in there, but I've said quite a lot recently, I think when he's playing alongside a Lundstram or a Davies, when he's not tasked with kind of setting the tone, that's when he's at his best. If he is playing higher, it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of replicate that performance when he's not in what I think most would regard his favourite position.
Yeah. There's conflicting reports coming in with regards to Matondo's absence. I'm sure Giovanni Van Bronckhorst may mention it if he's quizzed on it by Sky or Rangers TV folks at Parkhead. But no Matondo in the matchday squad. And there are a few comments coming in, Joshua, as well, saying what role, if any, do you feel that Alfredo Morelos will play today? William Matheson gets in touch. Hi, William. Good morning, guys. What's your thoughts on Alfredo's part in today's game? Do you see him playing a role coming off the bench and affecting the games at some stage?
Do you know what, Derek? I think he will come off the bench if Rangers need him to. If Rangers are maybe trailing, or if they need to chase a lead, or even if the game's level. I just think this is, in football, often it's set up for these types of storylines to kind of overtake the game. And Morelos, everyone knows what's happened the last few weeks with what the manager said, with him being dropped and left out, and then coming back in having positive talks. I think it was on Sunday the manager said, and training better. He must be sharper if he's on the bench. He must be in a physical condition to be able to impact the game, and I'm sure he'll want to come back and kind of right the wrongs of what happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure he'll be extra motivated. It could just be that it works out really well. Hopefully he's in a, as I say, a physical condition to kind of come on and impact the game. And it's a good option for Rangers to have if they need to change the game, because they've not got tons of attacking options to alter things, you'd say. I mean, Sakala scored at Celtic Park last year and did pretty well in that game. Scott Arfield, obviously experienced at this level, and would probably be one of the first people you'd trust to come on. Scott Wright, again, the manager seems to like him, and I thought he was good against Ross County last weekend. But aside from that, Ridvan, King, Devine, don't really see any of them coming on unless through necessity. Maybe Leon King, who again I think has performed well in what we've seen of him this season at the back. So yeah, probably I guess the team everyone expected, bar one. Stephen Davies, you know what you'll get from him. He hasn't started. I don't think he started in Old Firm under Van Bronckhorst, but his performance against PSV is an example of, I think, what he can still do, kind of dictating the game, being calm on the ball. And it looks very much to me like a similar approach Rangers used home and away against PSV. Obviously at home it was Davies and Lundstram who were in that midfield pairing, and they moved intelligently to try and open the passes into the kind of two number 10s almost on that day. So I wonder if Kamara will just be a like-for-like replacement for Tillman / Lawrence, and it will allow Rangers to play that same shape that worked well in the Champions League qualifiers.
Yeah, Cliff gets in touch. He's backing Alfredo to come on and score the winner I would absolutely love that, Cliff. I'm not going to lie, that would be absolutely magnificent if that was to unfold here this afternoon. Ian Thompson saying, I think that's our strongest 11 for today. Let's go Rangers. Let's see, there's a lot of other comments come in. Folks are trying to get to as many as possible. A lot of concerns, Joshua, with regards Borna Barisic. I think a lot of supporters have a bit of PTSD from his performance back there in February, which was a horror show. But for me this season, I felt he's been pretty good for Rangers. Dependable, solid. I know he had a catastrophe in Belgium, but likewise, I think everyone did. But I'm quite happy with Barisic at left back. Ridvan, of course, on the bench. I think we need to understand it's going to take this lad a wee bit of time to get integrated into the side, and new country, new language and what have you. So do you have any concerns about that left-hand side today?
I think it's fair, to look back at that game in February and also the goal, although I think, as I said yesterday, I don't think that was quite as much solely on Barisic, the goal in the 1-1 draw. I think it was Jota that scored that day. But Barisic has played quite a specific role, hasn't he? It's on my Twitter page this morning, the pass network from the PSV game, staying a little bit deeper, overlapping at points, but mainly kind of helping to hold fort and build play and provide another passing option. And I think throwing Ridvan in for a game like this would have been a very brave decision. And I guess it's something that, if it doesn't work out, it probably, doesn't work out quite spectacularly if a player is thrown into a game of this magnitude. But I thought Ridvan looked pretty sharp against Queen of the South, and his assist, you see his touch for his assist and his cutback, although it was against kind of a lower level of opposition. But Barisic, in some ways, I guess, when that game was going on, that 3-0 defeat in February, it's hard to envision him playing at left back for Rangers in the first game of the upcoming season. So I guess another opportunity for him to kind of right the wrongs from that game. But as I say, I think the settled back four, Van Bronckhorst wouldn't really want to move that, especially when Ridvan's only started. I think he's only started one league game, hasn't he? So it would be a big call to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move back to the question I posed to you, Johnny, before the teams were announced. Hoping for a strong refereeing performance. Nick Walsh, of course, in charge. I think he's a decent referee. I think we know that the VR need to come in sooner rather than later to help our match officials. But I've got no concerns with Nick Walsh being the referee this afternoon. Let's hope we're not talking about him at the end of the game. Do you have... how confident are you that that's going to be the case?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that he gets a control on the game. How confident am I, Derek? I don't think you can ever be confident in Scottish football. Let's be honest, the refereeing is always going to be at the top of the agenda unless the game goes without kind of incident, which is unusual. Everyone's so tribal about referees. I try to keep my powder dry on them unless there's something that's just outrageous in terms of a physical challenge. But when it comes to split-second decisions, people make mistakes. What you just got to hope is that the game plays out as a football contest. Obviously, the SFA have deemed that it's important that there's an amount of time between VAR being decided and VAR being put in. I actually think it's now that I think of it, I think there's a requirement to spend an amount of time with training, etc., before it could be put in. So the decision that to make was: do you put it in as quickly as you possibly can, or do you put it in at the start of a season? Personally, I've maintained this from the get-go. I think the right thing to do would be to get VAR in at the end of this season and at the start of the next season. Precisely because of the nature of Scottish football. If, for example, Celtic lose this game because there's a VAR call that goes against them, that VAR would have tidied up and allowed them to get a draw, and that becomes key in the title race, then forevermore there'll be dubiety and complaints about it, blah, blah, blah. I've always believed in the idea that when you start a competition, the rules are the same when you start as they are when they finish. And I think that's the problem with introducing it. We know how things go in Scotland. We know how some people will always revert to conspiracy, and that's only got worse now that the internet has allowed all the oddballs to sort of gather together and reaffirm their sort of worldview. So that, for me, that's why you just have to make it the end of the season. But listen, they've not done that, and I can understand their point, and I can understand anyone who disagrees with me, because I'm not saying that 100% believe that. I'm saying that on balance, that's what I would have done. But it's a tough decision either way, because I do understand the point of view that suggests that VAR comes in when it's ready. And as Jim says here, VAR is not a panacea. VAR won't solve all the issues. And that's important, because we'll have the same level of controversy about VAR decisions as there is down south. And we see all the time people look at some of the VAR decisions and say, wow, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Ian disagrees with you, Johnny. Says get VR in as soon as possible. It doesn't matter when it's introduced. Listen, I don't understand why they've got it in a sort of trial at the moment, don't they? Working in the background. I don't understand if they can do that. They can't bring it in right now. It's beyond me. But Scottish football never ceases to amaze me. So who knows? Right, just a reminder, folks, if you're just tuning in of that Rangers team, Josh, I just want to remind the viewers of how Rangers are lining up and the substitutes bench at Parkhead lunchtime.
Yeah, sure. So it's McLaughlin in goals, a back four of James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, James Sandsborn, Barisic, a midfield three in some capacity of Glenn Kamara, John Lundstram and Stephen Davis, Malik Tillman, Ryan Kent and Antonio Cholak up top. Substitutes, McGregor, Ridvan, King Devine, Jack, Arfield, Wright, Fashion Jr. and Morelos.
I like that wee graphic. Put that back up.
I'm trying to get it to scroll along the bottom, mate.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Hey, class. So there's the team, folks, the Rangers side today. I think Stephen Davis, just to recap, Johnny, I think that is possibly the surprise of the team. But again, we've seen it get brought in for that PSV home game. It gets used sparingly now, of course, which is understandable. But he could have a big part to play today. His experience is second to none, of course. He knows how to break the lines with a defence-splitting pass. I think that could be possibly a masterstroke from Gio.
Well, that's it. Listen, Joshua uses the word all the time. It's two words, actually. Press resistant, right? And that's really, really important against a team that press. And Celtic do press hard and fast. Now, Glenn Kamara and Stephen Davis are both excellent at taking the ball and moving it very, very quickly. They are both masters of body shape ahead of receiving the ball, which gives them that extra split second to maneuver it to someone else despite there being pressure. I think that'll have been key in terms of the decision-making process. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. It's early days, but I think Malik Tillman is the same. Very, very good taking the ball in tight areas. And I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will have been swayed to include Stephen Davis for that reason. But then with Stephen Davis, you also have the extras that he brings. The experience. That's intangible, but it's important. The know-how. The guy that you can turn to in the maelstrom and say, well, he's been there and he's done it before. So I think it's a good shout to bring Stephen Davis in this game. I've said before, he doesn't play like he's 37 years old. He plays like a much younger player. You cannot use his age against him, and I think we should stop doing it because his performance levels are not of his age. So yes. I think it's time to suggest that Stephen Davis is more than capable of going in there and playing well, and I'm delighted for one to see him.
Yeah. Do you know what is quite interesting as well? This team compared to Van Bronckhorst's first Old Firm team 6 months ago. You know, he's got like Lundstram, Kamara, and Davis in there today, in his midfield three with, obviously, we're saying Tillman tucking in, whereas his first midfield three was, you know, Kamara at the base of midfield in his own, Aribo and Arfield ahead of him, Ahmed Diallo on the right. So you can't say that he's not someone who's kind of learned and adapted his own from his own preferences. You know, very different approach from that day. And I think Rangers, especially John McLaughlin in goals, I think it's worth talking about as well, Derek.
I wanted to touch on this because there's a comment came in, Joshua. I wanted to pose this to you from Willie Hutchins. Hi, Willie. Is McGregor missed on a day like today? Is he?
Well, I mean, obviously, look back through McGregor's Rangers career in Old Firm games, the penalty saves, the big moments, and definitely an argument to say that, yeah, you need your goalkeeper to make the difference on games like this. But I think increasingly with where football's going as well, with goalkeepers in possession, I think the Old Firm semi-final at Hampden last season, probably a good example of that. And we've seen with John McLaughlin recently, there's a few things I think that are worth touching on here. One, McLaughlin has the ability to, this has been covered quite a lot with De Gea down south as well, the ability for a goalkeeper to find his fullback and chip beyond the press. And McLaughlin does that really well. The 1-1 draw where McGregor played at Parkhead last season was very different from the 3-0 game. In the 3-0 game, I think Rangers were just not set up at all for the press, and he kicked the ball out of the pitch relentlessly. We covered it at the time. We did a long piece on goalkeepers distribution at the time, and match analysis on how Rangers in that 1-1 game kind of played over Celtic's press. You remember they kept Ryan Kent wide. They had Fashion Sakala up in the right wing instead of Ahmed Diallo, obviously a more kind of viable route to play the ball forward. But I think Rangers will prefer to have some control in possession and try and do again what they did against PSV. And for me, John McLaughlin gives you the best option of doing that. And I think PSV away showed he made a couple of big saves as well. Aside from the kind of commands his area and is good with his feet, which is what we always talk about. But obviously McGregor as well has made these big saves in Old Firm games in the past, hasn't he?
Yeah, there's two things I want to just say about the Celtic side that I think are important, and one of them plays into what Josh has just said. I think John McLaughlin's going to have to be very, very careful because Kyogo's a very, very good presser, and I think he'll be trying to target John McLaughlin on the ball. John McLaughlin's good on the ball for a keeper, but he's not Alisson. You know, he's not essentially an outfield keeper in goal. I don't believe that. I think he's comfortable and good, but I think he'll have to watch when he's got someone on top of him all the time. And you know that Kyogo, and especially Maeda, who's not playing but will come on, I'm assuming, at some stage, will target anyone they think is maybe a weak link in that Rangers backline. And I think John McLaughlin has to be very, very careful, not take too many chances. The other thing I would say is back post, Borna Barisic. I noticed one of the comments here saying that it's huge for Barisic. This game is absolutely massive for him. I hope someone's put an arm around him and fire him up, because the one thing that Abada gives you, doesn't really take part in playing an awful lot. He's excellent at getting himself central at the back post. And Borna Barisic has been caught out by that in the past, and he has to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's a huge match for him to really impose himself. He's got Yilmaz there breathing down his throat. And Borna's obviously not going anywhere now. The transfer window's shut. So there absolutely has to be an awareness of where Abada is at all times, because he's the kind of guy, as I say, that can pop up on the right hand side with a goal at any given moment. I'm assuming he is playing on the right, Josh. He will be on the right with Jota on the left, right?
I don't know, because are you talking about Abada? Yeah. I think against Jota played a lot off the right, but kind of coming inside. Celtic, I think, have really focused on overloading the left a lot. But I imagine today it would probably be Jota back on the left with Abada at the back post.
Well, that's how normally Abada plays on the right. But
yeah.
You know, forgive me if Jota's playing on the right, then it's a slightly different scenario. I actually think that would probably suit Barisic a bit more. But we'll see how Celtic sort of line up.
He's going to need help out there, though, Joshua, isn't he? Who do you see filling that role over there? Davis maybe heading over, help him out, doubling up, or does Ryan Kent need to think about his defensive duties more than he normally does today?
I think he always does, to be fair, Ryan Kent. He's a really hard worker without the ball. But Rangers, I presume Rangers' plan will be that they don't want to grant Celtic control of just playing football in their half, which is what they did in that 3-0 defeat. And they want to sit high and they want to be aggressive, and not be in a situation where they're constantly defending 1v1s at all points. But when you set up like Rangers do, which is at the moment largely a man marking system, a bit hybrid in some areas, not quite as, I don't think it will be quite as man for man as last season's Old Firms, where you've seen Ryan Kent join the striker and press in the front two, John Lundstrom jump up, Calvin Bassey jump up. Obviously, Calvin Bassey isn't here anymore, so I don't think it'll be quite as much of a domino effect as that. But Rangers will, I I presume, look to not kind of grant control of their half, play quite high up the pitch, defend quite high up the pitch, and a big test absolutely for Barisic. In those 1v1s and defending the back post, because Rangers will come under pressure at points. Celtic have scored a lot of goals this season already. They created a lot of chances. They created more chances than Rangers have this season. But equally, I think if you look at those European games for Rangers, they'll be confident that they can go and execute a performance like this away from home to get a result that's positive for them.
Yeah, there's concerns here. That Rangers team screams to me that there'll be a huge hole between midfield and attack. That's where sort of Tom Lawrence would have came in. I think Malik Tillman's going to be that man. Joshua, would you tend to agree, sort of filling that role?
Yeah, as I said, and I've put the pass network on my Twitter this morning. I think it will kind of be that box midfield Rangers tried to use with probably Kamara pushing up a bit, unless it is a flat midfield three. Big game for Tillman. I think he's so important in linking that, getting close to Čolak, ensuring that Rangers can get up the pitch, allowing Kent to stay wide at points. But maybe we'll see Kent come inside the pitch as well. We need him to have a big Old Firm performance. I don't think he's had, obviously the first couple of seasons, I think he did that quite consistently. Last year, perhaps not quite as much, although he did have an impact in certain moments, notably the kind of semi-final. Need Kent to be there. I presume Tavernier will form the width on the right, kind of be at points a back three in the build-up. And as we were talking just when Johnny went off air a wee while ago, Derek, presume that Kamara maybe fulfills a similar role to what he did in Europe last season, where he plays higher up the pitch. Is almost a bit of a makeshift number 10 at points, but we'll see. Maybe it will be that Tillman plays centrally, but certainly, reading between the lines, you'd imagine he maybe starts kind of tucked in off the right.
Yeah. One player we've not spoken about, Johnny, is a man of the moment, Antonio Čolak. Billy McCulloch says Čolak to become a hero today. I think he's already becoming a bit of a hero with the start to his Rangers career. He's banging form. I wouldn't bet against him getting on the score sheet again today. I love the fact that he doesn't necessarily need to set himself before firing shots on goal. It's one strike of the ball, and then more often than not, it's in the back of the net. He could have a big role to play today, couldn't he?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely massive, Derek. I mean, the thing for me, in terms of the defence, mate, they just have to watch the runners that are coming in. Celtic are absolutely on top of their form at the moment. You've got players all across that front three that are scoring goals. 9-0 against Dundee United. It's a huge defensive task. So I think Rangers, in terms of the defence, have to make sure that they really, really keep an eye on every single player, that they're switched on extremely sharply. In terms of the Rangers attack, I think that's where Rangers can get joy. They can get at those Celtic defenders. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Antonio Čolak, obviously, right at it, right on form, playing well. Ryan Kent, we know he steps up in these big games. And in terms of Malik Tillman, he's not a known quantity in Old Firm clashes, but he is a player that is capable of producing, as we've seen against PSV on the biggest stage, even though he is very early, as Joshua said earlier, in his career. But for me, the key to this game, the key to any Rangers win in an Old Firm game at Parkhead is always going to be the defence, Derek. So I think ultimately, in terms of those back four players, Borna Barisic we've discussed, James Tavernier has been over the course before, Connor Goldson the same, James Sands, he is carving out a reputation, carving out the sense that perhaps it is worth paying his release clause, which is significant, which is millions of pounds. But as a Rangers player, you're judged on games like this, and today we will know a lot more about James Sands come the end of the game.
Yeah, we certainly will. Okay, that's before we wrap up, prediction time. Joshua, Billy says predictions. What are you going for? What's it going to end up here today?
I'm going to go for 1-1, Derek. Hopefully that's not too pessimistic.
Sitting on the fence, boo.
Sitting on the fence, yeah. But no, I think it might be quite a similar game to last time. If Rangers can withstand pressure. I think they've got a good ability to get themselves up the pitch. I think we've seen, as Johnny says, from Van Bronckhorst, an ability to adapt in these big games and to the opposition and get his team positive results. So I'll say 1-1. I think the goal scorer might be, I'm going to say Malik Tillman, going to go a bit left field.
Wow, okay. I'll go along with Crypto Knight. He's going for a 2-1 Rangers win. I just fancy Rangers to come away with all 3 points. I don't know what it is, what it's based on, but I just feeling quite relaxed for this one, and I'm going for a Rangers win. Johnny, what say you?
I think it's going to be a draw. I've got to be honest. And I think a draw at Parkhead is a good result. You always want to see Rangers win. You always want the club to be victorious. That is always going to be the case. But I think this is a tough one. They're in form. They've not had the European midweek ties and are fresher, I think, probably at this stage of the season. And I think any kind of result, if it's a draw or a win, is a very, very good result against a team that's absolutely flying. So the worst case scenario, you go and you lose, which has happened to way better Rangers teams than this one at Parkhead. It's almost unthinkable at this point because it would open up such a big gap so early in the season, and it would make it really, really difficult. Yeah. So you just can't contemplate that. That would have to be contemplated after the event. But I think Rangers have got it there. They've got the players, they've got the quality, they've got the know-how because they've been there and done it already. And I'm confident they'll get a result. And in many ways, this is a huge week. What with the fixtures that are coming up in terms of the European tie, and then of course against Aberdeen. I think you want to get it off to a really good start. If you're under pressure and going to the Amsterdam Arena, and then under pressure, and I think it's at Pittodrie, isn't it? The Aberdeen game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's away from home next week. It's a big week.
All of a sudden, you're in serious difficulties there. So it's massive. It's absolutely massive, and hopefully Rangers can go out and get the result.
Yeah, it shows you the worldwide appeal of this show. Kenneth Robertson watching us all the way from South Korea. Good to have your company, Kenneth. He's going for a 2-0 Rangers win this afternoon. And Simple Simon had a pie, which is a fantastic username. Talking about me being relaxed. He's glad you are, Derek. My heart rate is 100.
Derek is the most relaxed person to watch a football game with ever. It is almost frustrating. It's just so, because Derek, what am I like to watch football with?
Yeah, a bag of nerves. Listen, as soon as the kickoff starts, we'll be kicking every ball. There's no doubt about it.
I didn't think I've never thought that about you, Josh. I've never seen you like a bag of nerves.
It's all a front. As soon as the football gets on, my dad always tells me my granddad was like that watching an Old Firm as well. Just couldn't deal with it. So I
just constantly talk rubbish, which people will not be surprised by. I just basically commentate on the game as it's going on. Joshua rolls his eyes every so often at some nonsense that's coming out of my mouth and points something out, and I'll go, all right, yeah.
Feed him a line for 5 minutes and we go on. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Fantastic. Right, just a reminder, folks, we're going to log off here, but at half-time, if you use Twitter, we'll be on for the Twitter Spaces to give our views of the first half event. So if you're on there, log on and listen to what we've got to say. So many of you actually heading on there. I think the last one we done, 1,300 people were on it at the one time, Johnny.
We'll try and smash that.
Yeah, so let's try and smash that today, and let's hope Rangers get a smashing result as well. We'll be back on the video at full time for all reaction.
On a plate.
Excellent stuff. Right, folks, thanks everyone for interacting as ever. Go and enjoy the game, and we'll speak to you a little later on.